CEYX, a king in Thessaly, was the son of Lucifer, the light-bearer, the star that brings in the day, and all his father's bright gladness was in his face. His wife ALCYONE was also of high descent. She was the daughter of APHAEUS, king of the winds. The two loved each other devotedly and were never willingly apart. Nevertheless, a time came when he decided he must leave her and make a long journey across the sea. Various matters had happened to disturb him, and he wished to consult the oracle, man's refuge in trouble. When ALCYONE learned what he was planning, she was overwhelmed with grief and terror. She told him with streaming tears and in a voice broken with sobs that she knew as few other could the power of the winds upon the sea. In her father's palace, she had watched them from her childhood, their stormy meetings, the black clouds they summoned and wild red lightning, and many a time upon the beach. She said, "I have seen the broken planks of ships tossed up. Oh, do not go. But if I cannot persuade you, at least take me with you. I can endure whatever comes to us together." CEYX was deeply moved, for she loved him no better than he loved her, but his purpose held fast. He felt that he must get counsel from the oracle, and he would not hear of her sharing the perils of the voyage. She had to yield and let him go alone. Her heart was so heavy when she bade him farewell, it was as if she foresaw what was to come. She waited on the shore, watching the ship until it sailed out of sight. That very night, a fierce storm broke over the sea. The winds all met in a mad hurricane, and the waves rose up mountain high. Rain fell in such sheets that the whole heaven seemed falling into the sea, and the sea seemed leaping up into the sky. The men on the quivering, battered boat were mad with terror, all except one who thought only of ALCYONE and rejoiced that she was in safety. Her name was on his lips when the ship sank and the waters closed over him. ALCYONE was counting off the days. She kept herself busy, waving a robe for him against his return and another for herself to be lovely in when he first saw her. And many times each day she prayed to the gods for him, to Juno most of all. The goddess was touched by those prayers for one who had long been dead. She summoned her messenger Iris and ordered her to go to the house of Somnus, god of sleep, and bid him send a dream to ALCYONE to tell her the truth about CEYX. The adobe of sleep is near the black country of the Cimmerians, in a deep valley where the sun never shines and dusky twilight wraps all things in shadows. No cock crows there, no watchdog breaks the silence, no branches rustle in the breeze, no clamor of tongues disturbs the peace. The only sound comes from the gently flowing stream of Lethe, the river of forgetfulness, where the waters murmuring and tease to sleep. Before the door poppies bloom and other drowsy herbs, within the god of slumber lies upon a couch downy soft and black of hue. There came Iris in her cloak of many colors, trailing across the sky in a rainbow curve, and the dark house was lit up with the shining of her garments. Even so, it was hard for her to make the god open his heavy eyes and understand what he was required to do. As soon as she was sure he was really awake and her errand done, Iris sped away, fearful that she too might sink forever into slumber. The old god of sleep aroused his son, Morpheus, skilled in assuming the form of any and every human being, and he gave him Juno's orders. On noiseless wings, Morpheus flew through the darkness and stood by ALCYONE's bed. He had taken on the face and form of CEYX drowned. Naked and dripping wet, he bent over her couch. "Poor wife," he said. "Look, your husband is here. Do you know me, or is my face changed in death? I am dead, ALCYONE. Your name was on my lips when the waters overwhelmed me. There is no hope for me anymore. But give me your tears.
Let me not go down to the shadowy land unwept.
In her sleep, Alcyone moaned and stretched her arms out to clasp him. She cried aloud, "Wait for me, I will go with you." And her cry awakened her. She woke to the conviction that her husband was dead, that what she had seen was no dream but himself. "I saw him on that very spot," she told herself. "So delicious he looked. He is dead and soon I shall die. Could I stay here when his dear body is tossed about in the waves? I will not leave you, my husband. I will not try to leave." With the first daylight, she went to the shore, to the headland where she had stood to watch him sail away. As she gazed seaward, far off on the water, she saw something floating. The tide was setting in and the thing came nearer and nearer until she knew it was a dead body. She watched it with pity and horror in her heart as it drifted slowly toward her. And now it was close to the headland, almost beside her. It was he, CEYX, her husband. She ran and leaped into the water, crying, "Husband, dearest!" And then, oh, wonder, instead of sinking into the waves, she was flying over them. She had wings. Her body was covered with the feathers. She had been changed into a bird. The gods were kind. They did the same to CEYX. As she flew to the body, it was gone, and he changed into a bird like herself, joined her. But their love was unchanged. They are always seen together, flying or riding the waves. Every year, there are 7 days on end when the sea lies still and calm. No breath of wind stirs the waters. These are the days when Alcyone broods over her nest, floating on the sea. After the young birds are hatched, the charm is broken. But each winter, these days of perfect peace come, and they are called after her, Alcyone, or more commonly, Halcyon days, while birds of calm sit brooding on the charmed wave.
PYGMALION and GALATEA. This story is told only by Ovid, and the goddess of love is therefore Venus. A gifted young sculptor of Cyprus named PYGMALION was a woman hater, detesting the faults beyond measure which nature has given to woman. He resolved never to marry. He told himself, "My art was enough for me." Nevertheless, the statue he made and devoted all his genius towards that of a woman. Either he could not dismiss what he so disapproved of from his mind as easily as from his life, or else he was bent on forming a perfect woman and showing men the deficiencies of the kind they had to up with. However that was, he labored long and devotedly on the statue and produced a most exquisite work of art. But lovely as it was, he could not rest content. He kept on working at it, and daily under his skillful fingers it grew more beautiful. No woman ever born, no statue ever made could approach it. When nothing could be added to its perfections, a strange fate had befallen its creator. He had fallen in love, deeply, passionately in love with the thing he had made. It must be said in explanation that the statue did not look like a statue. No one would have thought it was ivory or stone, but warm human flesh, motionless for a moment only. Such was the wondrous power of this disdainful young man. The supreme achievement of art was the art of concealing art. But from that time on, the sex he scorned had their revenge. No hopeless lover of a living maiden was ever so desperately unhappy as PYGMALION. He kissed those enticing lips. They could not kiss him back. He caressed her hand, her face. They were unresponsive. He took her in his arms. She remained a cold and passive form. For a time he tried to pretend as children do with their toys. He would dress her in rich robes, trying the effect of the one delicate or glowing color after another, and imagine she was pleased. He would bring her the gifts, real maiden love, little birds and gay flowers, and the shining tears of amber python sisters weep, and then dream that she thanked him with eager affection. He put her to bed at night and tucked her in all soft and warm, as little girls do their dolls. But he was not a child. He could not keep on pretending. In the end, he gave up. He loved a lifeless thing, and he was utterly and hopelessly rich. This singular passion did not long remain concealed from the goddess of passionate love. Venus was interested in something that seldom came her way, a new kind of lover, and she determined to help a young man who could be enamored and yet original. The fast day of Venus was, of course, specially honored in Cyprus, the island which first received the goddess after she rose from the foam. Snow-white heifers whose horns had been gilded were offered in number to her. The heavenly odor of incense was spread through the island from her many altars. Crowds thronged her temple, not unhappy lover, but was there with his gift, praying that his love might turn kind. There too, of course, was Pygmalion. He dared to ask the goddess, "Goddess Aphrodite, I know I tried to avoid love all costs, but I never intended to offend you. Now I'm here prostrated before your temple, overwhelmed by the power of love, and I ask you for a wife like my ivory girl." But Venus knew what he really wanted, and as a sign that she favored his prayer, the flame on the altar he stood before leaped up 3 times, blazing into the air. Very thoughtful at this good man, Pygmalion sought his house and his love, the thing he had created and given his heart to. There she stood on her pedestal, entrancingly beautiful. He kissed her and then he started back. Was it self-deception, or did she really feel warm to his touch? He kissed her lips, a long lingering kiss, and felt them grow soft beneath his. He touched her arms, her shoulders, their hardness vanished. It was like watching wax soften in the sun. He clasped her wrist, blood was pulsing there. Venus, he thought, this is the goddess doing. And with unutterable gratitude and joy, he put his arm around his love and saw her smile into his eyes and blush. Venus herself graced their marriage with her presence, but what happened after that we do not know, except that Pygmalion named the maiden Galatea, and that their son Paphos gave his name to Venus' favorite city.
The story of BAUCIS and PHILEMON. In the Phrygian hill country, there were once 2 trees. One was an oak and the other was a linden, and they grew in a single trunk. This story will tell us about hospitality and the immeasurable power of the gods. One day, Jupiter was tired of eating, drinking, and watching a graceful dance, accompanied by Apollo's lyre. He came down to earth with his favorite companion, Mercury. "Hey, Mercury! Came down here! We need to hurry and check how hospitable are the people of Phrygian Hill. I'm so excited to experience how they welcome us as we disguise as wayfarers." "Wait, Jupiter! I know that you are so excited, but wait me. I need to grab some clothes so that we will look like wayfarers as we seek help from the Phrygian people. They disguised themselves as a mortal to look for some adventures and to find out how hospitable are the people of Phrygian. Because the people there was under his special protection. The two gods finally came down to earth with the appearance of wayfarers and wandered through the land. They knocked the door of every hut they passed by to ask for some food and a place to rest, but no one admits them. While they were walking, they stopped in a very small house and knocked on the door. The door suddenly opens and they see a very clean room with a very old man and man inside. They welcomed the gods in a friendly fashion that made them comfortable. Can you please help us? We are hungry and we are very tired of walking. We need food and shelter. We are wayfarers. We sought some help from other houses, but they did not care about us. Will you help us? Yes, come in. We have some food and we will take care of both of you. My wife will be happy if they will see our visitors. While they are resting, the old woman first introduces herself as BAUCIS, and his husband was PHILEMON. They told that they were poor, but poverty does not affect them at all, because they are content with it. Then BAUCIS and PHILEMON started to cook some food and offer it to the gods. The two old people have no clue that their visitors were gods. They serve them the food they cook and offer a wine that tastes like vinegar with water. Then the poor refreshment they offer makes them feel sorry and offer their goose instead. When they saw that the two old people became exhausted, they realized that they should now reveal their true identity to the people who accept them despite their poor condition. The two gods took the two outside and they were surprised because they saw the countryside disappeared and now became surrounded by the lake. Then they looked back to their hut and they are shocked that their small hut has now become a very big building made up of white marble and golden roof. I can't believe, BAUCIS, that those wayfarers were gods, and now they rewarded us this very huge temple with a golden roof. PHILEMON, I can't believe that it is happening. I can't explain my feelings right now. I'm so happy we will now live together and spend the rest of our lives in this house. Then suddenly Jupiter asked, Whatever you want, and shall you have your wish. The two old people asked them to become their priest and die together so that they will not leave one another. They served in the building as the priest. They were in an extreme old age. Suddenly, when they were exchanging memories, they saw forth leaves. Then as a bark was growing around them, and they started to say farewell to each other. BAUCIS, my love, we'll live and die together. I will be forever with you, no matter what will happen. The gods know how much I love you. Oh, my dear PHILEMON, thank you for giving me the unconditional love. I will never forget you. We will live and die as one. Farewell to you, my dear. I love you. they slowly turned into trees, but still their roots together, growing in one trunk.
This youth, whose name is so famous, he was ENDYMION, who spent much of his life in perpetual sleep. Some says that he was a king, a hunter, but most of them say he was a shepherd. All agree that he was a youth of surpassing beauty, and that this was the cause of his singular fate. Zeus offered him anything that he might desire, but ENDYMION chose an everlasting sleep in which he might remain youthful forever. The moon goddess Selene falls in love with the mortal ENDYMION. She visited her sleeping love in the night as she rode her moon chariot across the night sky. She would come down to earth just to be with beautiful ENDYMION. He never woke up to see the shining silvery form bending over him. In all the stories about him, he sleeps forever, immortal but never conscious. Wondrously beautiful, he lies on the mountainside, motionless and remote, as if in death, but warm and living. The night after night, the moon visits him and covers him with her kisses. It is said that this magic slumber was her doing. She lulled him to sleep so that she might always find him and caress him as she pleased. But it is said too that her passion brings her only a burden of pain, fraught with many sighs.
Daphne was independent, a love and marriage-hating young huntress. She is said to be Apollo's first love. It is not strange that she fled from him. One unfortunate maiden, after another beloved of the gods, had to kill her child secretly or be killed herself. The best one could expect was exile, and many women thought that worse than death. The ocean nymphs, who visited Prometheus on the crag in the Caucasus, spoke only the most ordinary common sense when they said to him, "May you never, oh never behold me, sharing the couch of a god. May none of the dwellers in heaven draw near to me ever. Such love as the high gods know, from whose eyes none can hide, may that never be mine. To war with a god lover is not a war, it is despair." Daphne would have agreed completely, but indeed she did not want any mortal lovers either. Her father, the river god Peneus, was greatly tried because she refused all the handsome and eligible young men who wooed her. He would scold her and gently and lament, "Am I never to have a grandson?" But when she threw her arms around him and coaxed him, "Father, let me be like Diana," he would yield and she would be off to the deep woods, blissful in her freedom. But at last Apollo saw her, and everything ended for her. She was hunting, her dress short to the knee, her arms bare, her hair in wild disarray. Nevertheless, she was enchantingly beautiful. Apollo thought, what would she not look like properly dressed and with her hair nicely arranged? The idea made the fire that was devouring his heart blaze up even more fiercely, and he started off in pursuit. Daphne fled, and she was an excellent runner. Even Apollo, for a few minutes, was hard put to it to overtake her. Still, of course, he soon gained. As he ran, he sent his voice ahead of him, entreating her, persuading her, reassuring her. "Do not fear," he called. "Stop and find out who I am, no rude rustic or shepherd. I am the Lord of Delphi, and I love you." But Daphne flew on, even more frightened than before. If Apollo was indeed following her, the case was hopeless. But she was determined to struggle to very end. It had all but come. She felt his breath upon her neck, but there in front of her the trees opened, and she saw her father's river. She screamed to him, "Help me, father, help me!" At the words, a dragging numbness came upon her. Her feet seemed rooted in the earth. She had been so swiftly speeding over. Bark was enclosing her, leaves were sprouting forth. She had been changed into a tree, a laurel. Apollo watched the transformation with dismay and grief. "O fairest maidens, you are lost to me," he mourned. "But at least you shall be my tree. With your leaves my victors shall wreathe their brows. You shall have your parts in my triumphs. Apollo and his laurel shall be joined together wherever songs are sung and stories told." The beautiful leaved tree seemed to nod its waving head as if in happy consent.
In Ortygia, an island which formed part of Syracuse, the greatest city of Sicily, there is a sacred spring called ARETHUSA. However, ARETHUSA was not water, or even a water nymph, but a fair young huntress and a follower of Artemis. Like her mistress, she would have nothing to do with men. Like her, she loved hunting and the freedom of the forest. One day, tired and hot from the chase, she came upon a crystal clear river, deeply shaded by silvery willows. No more delightful place for a bath could be imagined. ARETHUSA undressed and slipped into the cool, delicious water. For a while, she swam idly to and fro in utter peace. Then she seemed to feel something stir in the deeps beneath her. Frightened, she sprang to the bank, and as she did so, she heard a voice. "Why such haste, fairest maiden?" Without looking back, she fled away from the stream to the woods and ran with all speed her fear can give her. She was hotly pursued by one stronger, if not swifter than she. The unknown called her to stop. He told her he was the god of river, ALCYONE, and that he was following her only because he loved her. But she wanted none of him. She had but one thought: to escape. It was a long race, but the issue was never in doubt. He could keep on running longer than she. Worn out at last, ARETHUSA called to her goddess, and not in vain. Artemis changed her into a spring of water and cleft the earth so that a tunnel was made under the sea from Greece to Sicily. ARETHUSA plunged down and emerged in Ortygia, where the place is which her spring bubbles up is holy ground, sacred to Artemis. But it is said even so she was not free of ALPHAEUS. The story is that the god, changing back her into river, followed her through the tunnel, and that now his water mingles with hers in the fountains. They say that often Greek flowers are seen cornering up from the bottom, and that if a wooden cup is thrown into ALPHAEUS in Greece, it will reappear in ARETHUSA, well, in Sicily.